Today I'm back with an absolute doozy of a battle similar to yesterday, but even better. This one is actually one I received from Great Book of Grudges versus Colonel Demanders, who are Damnenders, who I definitely mispronounced the name of last time and just now, but he is Demand, so Demanders. Anyway, yeah, it's Ogres versus Chaos Dwarfs, which should be a pretty interesting matchup. As I previously mentioned, Chaos Dwarfs don't have a ton of anti-large, but they do have some very good elite anti-large units. These two Infernal Guard with Flyer Glaives. Also may have seen my Cathay replay yesterday. Could be very good units, if not blown to absolute smithereens. You can see the Iron Blaster here already trying to do so. Got a Sorcerer Prophet of Hashut up in the air. Kadai Destroyer, the big beastie. A lot of people have been saying that this guy is going to be completely OP. I don't know if that will be true in practice multiplayer, but anyway, Bull Centaurs with great weapons, of course, another elite anti-large, this time mobile unit, with some Chaos Dwarf Warriors, and a couple of Hobgoblin Archers for Great Book of Grudges. For Colonel Damneders. Damn it. Anyway, yeah, you got it. Iron Blaster here. The Tyrant, we've got a whole bunch of Iron Guts, so the heavy armor, of course, will make them impervious to Hobgoblin attacks for the most part, and anti-infantry now, that is an update they've got. They've now got a nice little +5, not a big change, but it does give them that little bit of extra weapon strength, and more importantly, melee attack. Also got a bunch of Noblars, and then out on the flanks already some Mournfang Cavalry looking to sweep up and around, and the Iron Blaster here on this map has a pretty distinct advantage. The Chaos Dwarfs are forced to attack uphill, and they didn't take anything to try and counterfire the Iron Blaster, so it's just going to be all in for the melee push, which I personally love. I mean, yes, have some ranged units here, which will be pretty important, but nice downhill charge to die in the background. Iron Guts moving into the Chaos Dwarf Warriors. Love this classic black color scheme as well. Looks absolutely classy and fantastic. Meanwhile, in the outside, these Bull Centaur Renders managed to catch flanking force of Mournfang Cavalry. They're going to decisively deal with one unit and just in general do a pretty decent job of cleaning them up. Meanwhile, up close, these Infernal Guards are getting some volleys. It looks like this one very nicely turns to fire. Great reaction. A Great Book of Grudges. And Colonel also going to make a great reaction peel, not into the Fire Guard, but into the back of these Hobgoblin Archers, and the Dwarf Warriors just do a ton of damage. They're going to get a nice surround on the Kadai, try and lock it down as well. Right now, the Kadai is actually being a great distraction piece. The Sorcerer Prophet also went over to deal with the Iron Blaster in melee on his Bale Taurus. Yeah, not the best melee defense, but certainly enough melee attack armor piercing damage to get through. Iron Blaster's taking some damage, but the Lead Belchers and the Iron Blaster have been focused on the Kadai and the Sorcerer Prophet, and that means they're not shooting these Infernal Guard, which is super important. The Infernal Guard can then shoot and fight in melee with equally good performance in both, pretty much, against these Iron Guts and try and wear them down while the Kadai is tanking some damage. So tactically, although the Kadai probably isn't paying for itself in damage output, would be very surprised. Yeah, less than 500 damage output already, actually, as the camera bugs out a little bit. But certainly has been a great distraction piece. Now these Bull Centaur Renders, having vanquished much of the Mournfangs, there's still a few hanging around here. They're going to now charge uphill and try and deal with those Lead Belchers, try and bail out the Kadai. See if it can accrue a little bit more value. Likewise, the Sorcerer Prophet also getting caught on the ground there by the Tyrant, but I want to keep it close to these Bull Centaur Renders because they are about to go on an unholy tear. And a lot of people have been saying these guys are pretty OP too. I'm not sure yet. They're functionally pretty much like Minotaurs, except a little bit more expensive. And they also don't get knocked over, which is actually a huge, huge benefit over Minotaurs. Of course, they're on 4 legs. They can get staggered, but are obviously immune to knockdown, unlike Minotaurs, which is definitely a pretty distinct difference. But I would actually say maybe arguably less cost-effective than Minotaurs. Probably about the same. I don't know. It's still too early to tell, but certainly if they're used well, can be extremely effective. They're going to butcher these Lead Belchers in quick succession, and I mean, just with the 2 of these and the 1 Mournfang, they've already more than paid for themselves, probably like 3 times over. And yeah, I mean, 2377. Keep in mind, those are not the great weapon Mornfangs, so it's not necessarily an ideal engagement. I also think the Mornfangs just completely missed their charge, but one of the units at least is going to redeem themselves, taking down the Sorcerer Prophet here as he gets absolutely mass blocked in. Their mounts are literally bigger than his, so yeah, not a lot of chance for that Sorcerer Prophet to escape. He's going to be dealt with and succinctly killed. Will that result in wide leadership issues? The Kadai goes down at about the same moment, and things are looking very dicey for the Chaos Dwarfs. The Infernal Guards actually terror route. Or what? They terror routed to exactly. Yeah, maybe the army ability was used there, and I just missed the end of it. But anyway, both Centaurs are going to move down, try and finish these Mornfangs. A couple of sneaky gets up here from somewhere that I didn't see. And they're going to try and get up and finish that Iron Blaster off. Did come back from route, but they also get wrecked by those Iron Guts. The one is going to go hide in the forest here, it looks like, potentially for the late game. Nice tactical reserve move there, just to keep some numbers on the field and not to have them get completely blasted. But at this point, it's going to be the Bull Centaurs and the Infernal Guards. It'll be up to them to try and carry the rest of this game. Already seen previous games, Infernal Guard certainly can carry, but the Iron Blaster is a huge danger to them. Right now, it's focused on the Bull Centaurs, which is probably the right call, to be honest. The Infernal Guards are already pretty tattered. They're going to get some nice volleys here into the back of these Iron Guts as they pursue Tall Hat lads. Oof, the Iron Blaster, too, getting some pretty brutal hits. Dismember being used, the army ability for Ogres, of course, going to significantly slow the Bull Centaur renders and just keep them from being able to move too much. But how's the Iron Blaster on ammo? Still quite a bit of ammunition left. Certainly enough to finish this game off. So let's fast forward a little bit through this kind of late game cleanup as the Ogres attempt to clean up the Chaos Dwarfs. And the Bull Centaurs try and return the favor. We get a nice little stand here with this gun line. Good opportunity. Oh, they actually have reloading animations. Wow. Look at that, guys. Look at that. Check that out. Look at that. Oh, they're pouring in the powder. Getting the ramrod. Okay. Couple rams. And then, oh, yeah, I was going to say, beautiful opportunity for the Iron Blaster to try and hit them while they're a little bit clumped up here. But the Iron Guts are quickly going to learn that those ridiculously sized bayonets are actually quite useful for slapping ogre bellies. I love the attack animations, too, where they kind of shoot a jet of flame out of the barrel of the gun. Super, super cool, to be honest. Anyway. Infernal Guards do manage to hold off the Iron Guts, and the Iron Blaster is now going to be blasting them out. What that means, though, is that the Bull Centaurs, for the time being, are safe. They managed to finish off that other unit of Iron Guts, and now going to try and close the distance and see if they can finish off the Tyrant. Very dangerous situation, though. Ogres have a significant advantage on the balance of power, and the Chaos Dwarfs are just teetering on the edge of army losses here. Bull Centaurs jump the Tyrant, but this is going to blob them up dangerously, allow the Iron Blaster to get some very effective shots on them. Let's see how it does shooting in here. Can get nice line of sight. It looks like it does. Oof, at least, what, 3-4 models go down from that one single volley. It's absolutely devastating. Will they be able to hold on to their leadership? It's important to note that due to the fact they've gained so much experience, they actually have more leadership than they would otherwise, right? Because of that extra, I think it's 1 leadership per level, right? So we can look at that extra 4 leadership. They're just 11 right now above routing. Is quite close. Let's see if they can finish it. They actually do just wreck the Tyrant there very efficiently. And the Infernal Guards managed to get a handful of volleys in there, make sure he's shattered. So all of a sudden, just like that, the balance of power flips very heavily. Another Dismember has been used, though. I mean, the balance of power could easily flip back as the Iron Blaster queues up another shot or two. Does it have just one more volley? There we go. Now 1 more volley. And I might even drive up close just for the last volley and try and point blank that into those renders just to see if I could get the maximum contact, because possible with this last shot some of those might miss, but let's see here. Oh, it looks like he actually shot it at the fire glaives. Interesting choice. It does shatter them. So I think that was ultimately the right call, but Bull Centaurs now just barely holding on to their leadership. Can they finish it off? What, 5 of them? Charge into the Iron Blaster, which unfortunately turns around for some inexplicable reason, exposes its rear arc, which the Bull Centaurs managed to get a few very strong hits in. 48 charge bonus with a little bit of armor piercing damage. That is actually doing some splash attacks. Looks like might have actually killed a few models there already, down to only 3 models, 1300 HP. Bull Centaur renders managed to clutch it out. Those great weapons, that anti-large bonus, just absolutely very strong if left unattended to. They're weak to a number of things, and we're going to talk more about that in just a second, but this is definitely the best performance I've seen out of them. I would say broadly it's an outlier from their typical performance, but it is good to know that this kind of thing is possible. I mean, it's also possible to do, again, with something like Minotaurs, great weapons, or, you know, like a high-tier anti-large armor-piercing cavalry or something. But the Infernal Guards, again, very effective. One of them doesn't even quite pay for itself, but tactically super useful to have. The rest of the build largely gets run over. Kadai especially was just a giant distraction piece, which ultimately was fairly effective in absorbing fire and allowing these 3 units to clean up the rest of the build. And, like, yeah, the lead belchers here, not having any, what am I looking for? Saber tusks to help defend it from mobility was a little bit tough. I mean, ultimately, the one Mornfang does pay for itself, taking down the Sorcerer Prophet, but the other one, just getting caught out on the charge like that's real tough for the unit that's defensive. I almost would think maybe you want to go with great weapons, these guys, just so that they can trade into the Bull Centaurs a little bit more effectively. I'd have to do, like, some testing on that to see if it's cost efficient or not. But, yeah, definitely just wider on mobility. Also, trappers, like a lot of trappers, because these guys only have 50 armor, and especially the great weapons don't have a missile block chance. Mass trappers could be definitely a way of bogging them down and just shooting them to death. Speaking of shooting, the Iron Blaster is definitely a very solid choice in this matchup. The mobility means that it can kind of scoot and shoot and try and avoid getting countershot too much by Chaos Dwarfs. And it obviously does devastating amount of damage to both large and small targets alike, so definitely is worth bringing in this case. The Iron Guts also acquitted themselves fairly well. That extra little anti-infantry bonus certainly does help. So an interesting matchup. Big thanks to both these lads for sending this replay over after fighting it. It was an awesome, awesome battle. One of the closest battles I've seen in quite some time, and probably the closest you're going to see in early access. I mean, it came down to the absolute wire there, so very fun stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification, like this video, share it with someone if you found it interesting, informative, entertaining, any of that. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.